introduce to you our first keynote, Mr. Mark Hope, and he will be introducing himself and explaining what EAVX is. And I will let you take it away, Mark.
Thank you very much, Catherine. I appreciate it. I'm excited and honored to be with you here today for the next 30 minutes. Just a quick note, this is my first keynote, and it's very strange speaking into a computer by myself for 30 minutes, which is going to make my wife have a field day, the fact that I like to talk. So this is perfect. As Catherine said, my name is Mark Hope. I'm the COO and General Manager of EAVX, which is the newest business unit with JB Poindexter. Let me give you a little bit of background about myself. Prior to this, I spent 7.5 years as the VP of Engineering with Morgan Olson. Worked on, had all aspects of engineering from manufacturing to product development and business development. Worked on some of the new truck bodies that were displayed at the NTEA show back in 2019, and focused a lot on driving Morgan Olson forward in terms of body engineering and design and looking at different aspects of just walk-in vans in general. Before that, and we like to put the plus in front of the number because that'll give you an idea of how old we really are, but 30 plus years of industry experience. I started my career with Chrysler back when it was actually Chrysler as a powertrain engineer. But my focus really back then was on diagnostics and alternative fuels. So I worked on a lot of the early ethanol programs at Chrysler. Most people didn't know that they had deployed a large fleet of ethanol compatible minivans that didn't use a sensor. So it was a lot of work in the ethanol space back in the early to mid 90s for myself. Transitioned to Eaton, spent a few years on the hybrid electric business unit for the Eaton group, and then did a little bit of work on torque control products. So I managed their team there working on traction modifying differentials and torque control products in general, stability control. And then I took a big departure from the automotive and truck world and went to work for two fuel cell companies, focusing in on remote industrial, telecommunication, backup power, and commercial electronics. So different fuel cells applied to that. I like to joke, I'm not much of a gearhead. Cars and trucks were something I kind of fell into. I have a passion for problem solving. I love complex business and technical problems, and I would have to say that I haven't seen more complex problems in engineering in business than in passenger car and commercial work trucks. They're very challenging. I think anybody from an engineering and business perspective understands the market dynamics and then the complexities, especially with a commercial work truck. And then on top of that, I have a big passion for alternative fuels. I started my early career with ethanol, moved into hybrid electric and fuel cells. And I think it's our responsibility to find better ways of providing the same service. It's better for us. It's better for our environment. So what is EAVX? What's it mean? It's an acronym. It's not a word. So it's not EVAX. It's an acronym. It means electric autonomous vehicle intersections. So we see the body and the accessory as the intersection between the chassis and other advanced technologies. So really the body, chassis, and industrial design have to work as one. So EAVX was formed with the newest business unit at JB Poindexter. We've been in existence for about 20 months. And we're the innovation and technology hub for all of JB Pico. We're formed because there was a constant evolution of technology and increasing complexities for commercial trucks. So we needed a dedicated team to focus on the future of truck bodies and accessories. And it really is a transformation within JB Pico. What this did is it enabled the business units to focus on body manufacturing and delivering to our commitments, while we could focus on the future states of the business and how to transform commercial work trucks in collaboration with electric and advanced chassis manufacturers and next generation technologies. I believe we're at the beginning of a massive transformation within the commercial work truck industry. It goes well beyond electrification of the propulsion system. And why do I think this? Well, a couple key points. If you went to the ACT show last week, you would recognize how many people were actually there. It was probably the largest number of alternative fueled and electric propulsion systems that I've seen in my time here in the commercial work truck space. I think we've actually outgrown Long Beach Convention Center. I think they have plans to move it because of the size, the weight to actually have a booth is insane. So you can just look at the scope and size of the number of people in this space and in this market now. Everybody has an electric offering and technology to bring into it. And the NTEA, I think there were well over 20 different manufacturers, 20 different EV demonstrations within the show itself. And then digitalization and e-commerce are reshaping the industry. So e-commerce isn't slowing down. I think the pandemic's actually sped things up. It was on its path to become the predominant factor in retail sales. And I think COVID-19's actually kind of pushed it forward much faster than anybody ever knew. And then on top of that, we have increasing pressures on regulations. And the regulations themselves aren't, there's aggressive goals. There are municipalities and regions within certain areas that are going beyond the regulations to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and drive to zero emissions, to ZEV. But before we get too much into the transformation of commercial work trucks, I think it'd be a good idea to talk about what does it really mean to transform something? We tend to use change and transformation interchangeably, but they're very, very different things. They're vastly different in what they are. A change is a measurable physical difference. It's typically very short duration, focused on maybe a reaction to an external factor. So modify a day-to-day behavior, a process, a design. Examples that I can think of are off the top of my head. We went from incandescent to LED lights, or we changed to a breakaway bumper from a standard bumper. They're still the same functions. They still act as a bumper. They still act as a light. We just changed the physical thing. So it's just a physical difference. Transformation, on the other hand, is almost always large and significant. And really the difference is that it's a fundamental evolution of your beliefs. You have to really think about how you perform certain actions. And it may not have anything to do with an external influence. It usually does, it doesn't have to, but it requires a fundamental shift from within. You have to really think about your behaviors in a whole different way. And when it's done right, it has a permanent and far-reaching impact. So it's a modification of one's core beliefs or a core belief. It's long-term behaviors, and it's a profound impact on how we view things. In a business context, you typically look at two things. First, there has to be significant problems or challenges. For commercial work trucks, you can focus on the external environment in our market. We are in unprecedented times. We're just coming out of a global shutdown. You could pretty much say that we're probably still in it to an extent in response to the pandemic. There's significant supply chain shortages, labor shortages. There's shift in our market environments. You can just look at the demographic shift in the labor force. It's real. And on top of that, e-commerce isn't slowing down. So people are still ordering more and more online, and technology is enabling us to do things much quicker. And our expectations are that we want goods and services faster than before. Second, you have to have a desire. So the stakeholders have to have a desire to make fundamental changes. Some might be forced. So the desire might be forced upon you. There might be fines, there might be regulations. Things are going to change that are going to require us to transform what we do. So what does that mean in context of work trucks? It's a fundamental evolution of function. So you could argue that TCO is the biggest single factor for adoption of a customer. And the next wave of innovations will be centered around the driver. So anything that makes driving easier, facilitates greater income generation, increases safety, security, improves the health and wellness and well-being is going to gain traction in the industry. So changing the function of the truck or enabling the function to help, given the driver shortage and the increase in fuel costs, it's going to be significant. Evolution in form. You could look at how we look at our aesthetics of the truck. So EV powertrains, fuel cell powertrains, they enable us to rethink and re-envision what a walk-in van body might be, what a truck body might be, how we integrate the two together to deliver a solution to the end user in that market. More importantly, it's more about an evolution of how we do business. We can work and collaborate now from anywhere in the world today. I think one of our contacts at a key dealer that's on the panel next, we talked about just the ability to order a truck from anywhere in the world in the Midwest. You could be sitting in a small town in the Midwest and take an order from Asia. it has really opened up, digitalization has really opened up our access to the world. It's a permanent change in how we view and operate the work site. So it's more than just the propulsion system now alone. It's more than just the EV powertrain. It's a fundamental evolution of how we operate within the work site, whether it's a stationary work site or a mobile work site. But we're going to transform commercial work trucks beyond what the powertrain is doing today. So what drives transformation? What's causing this in our space? So when I think of the drivers, I think about the regulations to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. I think about the driver shortages. You have the increasing fuel costs. I mean, if anybody went to the pump today to fill up, I think we're well over $4.50 a gallon now in Michigan. We have a number of technology choices that can be adapted. If you just, as we stated at the NTA show and ACT, if we look at all the different EV solutions that are available to us, that barrier to entry has really decreased. So people can jump in, or different companies and different technologies can jump into the space and provide very tangible benefits. There are the increasing demands due to e-commerce. It's not slowing down. So the demands on us as commercial work truck manufacturers is going to increase. And then there's the pressures of urban congestion. So you're seeing cities growing at exponential rates, contributing to greenhouse gas emissions and contributing to congestion. So you're looking at regulations and rules to change how goods are delivered to major urban city centers. Just alone for greenhouse gas, give you an idea for the CARB-specific regs, the new proposal by 2035, California is looking for 100% of the cars to be electrified. For medium-duty trucks, that's roughly about 75% for class 4 to 8, and 55% of class 2B and 3. And really, the one that people don't pay attention to that much that will have a bigger impact to it will be the TRUs. So going to 100% electrified power units from TRUs are going to be a big challenge for the commercial work truck industry. Driver shortages. By 2030, it's projected that we'll need 162,000 new drivers. 2021 saw a historic high of greater than 80,000 shortage of 80,000 drivers. And the estimate over the next decade, we're going to need to recruit almost 1 million new drivers just to keep up with the demand. Fuel costs. Prices are going to, right now, a national average of $4.33 a gallon. CNN's reporting that we could see nationwide California's $6 a gallon gas before it's over. So the fuel costs are going to continue to go high for the foreseeable future. So fuel, driver shortages, pressures to reduce or eliminate combustion engines, they're all going to be there. They're all going to start driving what needs to happen in the commercial work truck space. And then if you look at the number of vehicle choices we have, and this impacts how we order and deliver vehicles to the end user. So the number of EV passenger cars and trucks are expanding. Bloomberg estimates by 2040, 58% of the global passenger car sales will be EV. And as we start adding more and more EV passenger cars, it's going to start to propagate more and more into the commercial work truck space. By 2030, they estimate maybe 4 million EVs in California alone. Well over 40 different options from class 2B to 7 for just EV chassis alone. So the number of choices are increasing, which are going to place a demand on the dealers. And then the digitization of the truck, the data that's available. Just think about what's available today without getting into the level 4 autonomy. So chassis functions are readily available today. So we can look at powertrain status and health. We can look at battery health. There are telematics solutions that can provide that. Camera outputs now are available. We can look at that. We can send that over the internet. Body functions, we can look at door states, liftgate states, and health. We can look at cargo status, tool status. We can even monitor the driver for alertness. And all of that data can be packaged up, can be monetized, can be sent out, can help reduce the downtime of a vehicle. And we haven't really gotten into the use case and control to make sure that the vehicles are safer based on those conditions of states. We're just now starting to push into that space. And really, we're truly on demand from worldwide access anywhere. We can order trucks by our phone today. That couldn't happen just 8 years ago. E-commerce is expected to cross 1 trillion for the first time in 2022. And I think when I started at Morgan Olson, it was less than 8% of retail sales. It's now going to be 21% of US retail sales by the end of 2022. That's tremendous. That's all e-commerce. By 2040, it's estimated that 95% of all purchases will be through e-commerce. More than 50% of consumers use a smartphone for shopping today. So you have access to goods and services unlike anything in our history, and in users' expectations are increasing. Meaning, I could order something by phone today and expect it to be at the office in 2 hours. Digital payments. We can make payments from our smartphones, right? So mobile wallets. 45% of the users use mobile wallets. 99% accept Visa and MasterCard over the phone or on our phones for smartphones. 72% accept PayPal. During the pandemic, 30% of grocery went online. So now you can get your groceries, you can get food, fast food. You've got DoorDash, you have Uber. So our taxi services have moved online, our food deliveries moved online, shopping has moved online, brick and mortar starting to decrease more. COVID estimates about 175 billion in e-commerce revenue just based on the COVID pandemic alone. Congestion, that's another big factor. So if you look at Europe, London, you have to pay 11.5 pound daily charge just to operate a vehicle in London. EVs do get some discount. Some can get up to 100% discount. I've seen stats where cities are responsible for 70% of the global emissions due to congestion. It's estimated over 60 billion in operating costs to commercial trucking alone due to congestion, and driver delays for us of over 960 million hours. That's remarkable to think about. And if you look at New York City is starting to place regulations on what can be operated within the city center. UPS, for example, gets hit with a $33.8 million in parking fines in New York City. So it's a real tangible financial impact to the consumer. It's an impact, an annoyance to us as drivers within the city center, and it has a tangible financial impact to commercial trucking of upwards of $60 billion just for the congestion that we see in the city center. So there's a real transformational driver that's there. You can feel the pain today. And then you have to look at stakeholder support. Is there a desire to make these transformations? Do our stakeholders really want to make these changes? And I'm going to argue that our customers do. That the total cost of ownership, it's even more sensitive today to the current market. So if you think about the 2 large drivers for adopting anything in the commercial truck space, it's the driver and it's fuel. And the driver is the largest factor. So we need to make the driver more efficient. We need to make them safe. We need to make them comfortable. And it's all designed around not only increasing profitability, but keeping retention for our end users. So being able to retain drivers is a key, considering what's happening in our industry today. And then fuel costs. Just go look at the pumps today. It's increasing. Whether it'll go down to what we would consider normal levels or not, I don't know. But today we're seeing pain at the pump that's real. And so I think that from a stakeholder standpoint, from our customer standpoint, customers of commercial trucks, I don't think that's ever really changed. But I think it's much, much more sensitive today than it's ever been. On top of that, they need to get their trucks. And with the shortages that we see in supply chain, lead times from the time to order to the time that the truck's delivered and upfit, those lead times have to shrink because the demand's not slowing down. So those are I think those all shape the desire of our stakeholders, our customers, to see this type of transformation. And then on the other side of it, there's a regulatory desire for sure. So there's some very aggressive goals, especially in California, to drive to more zero emissions. So, California, we've talked about the mandates. So there's a ZEV medium duty mandate or TRU mandates to go to zero emissions. And then if you talk to people in different municipalities, there are other municipalities that are going above and beyond the CARB regulations. You're going to eliminate combustion engines as much as they possibly can. So compressors, gensets, lawnmowers, leaf blowers, all of those are going to go electric. And then on top of that, 13 other states are adopting these regulations. So states like Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Massachusetts, they're all part of the 13 states that adopt these types of regs. So there is I think there is a desire, or would look at a desire for us to transform what we do today. So you have pressure, you have a challenge, we have real financial burdens that are coming on not only the consumer, but our stakeholders and us in the manufacturing sector, commercial work trucks, and there's a strong desire to make these changes. And so those two things really set us up for transformation within our industry. And then technology, advancement in technology. Just think about what's happened in the last 5 years. I used to joke, part of working through some of the postal programs, at the time we started the postal programs, Rivian didn't exist. And that was just 7 years ago. So companies like Rivian, who else? Lordstown, all of these startup companies didn't exist at the time we were working on postal programs. So the rapid evolution of EV manufacturers, of new trucks, SUVs, commercial chassis, is completely ramped up. And a lot of what we're seeing is reduction in battery costs. So because of the scale, we're now getting battery costs in the $130 kilowatt hour range, which starts to become price parity with gasoline. We're not there yet, but I think that's going to drive down. And I think you're going to start to see, as these companies become more and more successful, the cost of batteries will come down, and that'll enable higher adoption rates of EV technology for the chassis. The range has increased. Early days, I think we were lucky if we got 80 miles of range, factoring in heat and heating and cooling. Now, range of an R1T is somewhere on the order of 314 miles. It's becoming on parity with gasoline. And a medium duty application, it's not uncommon to see 150 and 180 mile range, which fit a large chunk of our application use case. And then there's fuel cells that are starting to be adopted more and more, especially for larger medium duty and Class 8s for range extenders. So we can get much greater range, up to 500 and 600 miles with fuel cell range extenders, and still remain ZEV. On top of that, digitization is taking over. Just think of mobility, autonomous. Right now, level 1 autonomy is commonplace. So you have adaptive cruise control and lane assist. Level 2 today is the highest you can get in commercial trucks. So if you think about Tesla Autopilot, GM Super Cruise, things like that. But by 2024, it's believed that level 4 autonomy will start to take hold. And that's a fairly substantial change. Right now, there are a few manufacturers that are petitioning to get level 4 autonomous vehicles operating on road. So the pathway is there, and 2024 is not that far away. From a connectivity and an Internet of Things, it's projected that 96% of new vehicles shipped by 2030 will have built-in connectivity. So your car will be able to talk to other cars, will be able to talk to stoplights. AVs are expected to produce somewhere around 19 terabytes of automotive data every hour. Just think about that for a minute. 19 terabytes of data every hour. That's a tremendous amount of data available to our end users, available to us. It actually boggles my mind on how that's going to actually take place. And then connected services might generate somewhere around a 1.5 trillion additional revenue. So it opens up a whole treasure trove of new opportunities for connected vehicles and new different revenue paths outside of what we typically see. So what's this all mean for commercial work trucks? Why are we here? Why are we talking about this? I believe we're at the beginning stages of a transformation. I think it started with electrification. We like to think of that in terms of our industry, like the EV chassis, but I think it goes well beyond the chassis. The technologies like autonomy and digitization are opening things up. And I think it's going to extend to all aspects of our industry, from dealer networks to how we re-envision the vehicle design, how we enhance the worksite functionality, to how we service and support our assets. We're rapidly moving towards a machine-centric work truck world. So we're no longer simply driver-based, but more a machine-based world where the machine enhances the driver's functionality. The market pressures and stakeholder desires to both improve driver efficiency, safety, and eliminate point source greenhouse gas emissions will force innovation in all areas. So where might we expect to see it? First, I think connectivity is probably the first thing. Opportunities for different revenue streams based on the amount of data available. 19 terabytes is scary to think about, and that's per hour. So think about how many hours a truck is operated on the road and how much data will be available. Right now, it enables OEMs to reinvent their value to customers through increasing safety and security. So having this data available is going to help. It's going to help with the driver safety. It's going to help with security of the vehicle. You can look at mobility as a service and over-the-air updates. So it'll be rapid. You'll be able to diagnose, get into the levels of prognostics that we've never seen before, especially with new drivers in medium-duty and heavy-duty trucks. So with a driver shortage, I think it was stated to me that we've got a bunch of people that are new to the medium-duty industry, and if you ever try to drive a Class 5 or operate a Class 5 truck, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. So the trucks have to be more self-aware. They have to aid the driver in driving. They have to be smart enough to help prevent accidents. They have to be smart enough to help the driver maneuver. These are the things. Question from Hope. What was the X in EAVX? We like to say it's intersection. So better way of saying interface, but intersection of body, chassis, body technology. So the vehicle is going to end up being the smartest device in the world. It's going to have all these advanced systems, infotainment systems, smartphone features, assisted autonomous driving, improve the comfort and efficiency. Those types of features may not directly come into the commercial work truck space, but I would expect to see some of it to enhance what they're doing. Servicization and digitalization. So basically, with all of this data and all of this technology, we're going to be able to look at new asset ownership models, right? They break away from the traditional ownership models. So I think from a service perspective, the work truck as a service, try to simplify the operational process for the end user. That might force OEMs to think about how to step away from being producer of an asset to being more service focused. So how we order and configure work trucks to reduce the lead time to receive the asset. So digitization is going to help there. I think you're going to see some radical changes in that, especially given the number of choices of EV solutions and technology solutions that we have today. Automation, automated functions and features. So changing the way that a work truck operates at the work site, whether it be mobile for delivery or static for, say, a utility municipal. Focusing on the driver, so increasing the efficiency of the driver, enhancing the safety, the comfort, to make him more efficient or make them more efficient, him or her, around the work site themselves. If you were sitting here, we ordered lunch, it's probably 99% confident that it's going to be delivered, especially the deli that I'm thinking of, by a robot. So a bot will actually deliver the lunch to us. Obviously, we have to go out and get it. It doesn't serve it up. I wish that could happen. It doesn't, but still, a robot is delivering lunch here in Ann Arbor today. Level 4 autonomous vehicles will be on the road by 2024, and that's going to enable us to re-envision how the driver operates within the vehicle. Not just middle mile, but last mile. So significant improvements in driver efficiency. Overall vehicle architectures are going to change. So EV powertrains enable re-envisioning the work truck body and their accessories. You're going to see new delivery models evolving, which will drive innovation in the types of work trucks. Micromobility will start to evolve. So we'll start to see integration of more small autonomous delivery vehicles and how they integrate to the larger vehicles. We still will need medium-duty vehicles. I don't think that's ever going to go away, but they will be enhanced by these smaller delivery models to get into the city centers, and they all have to be integrated together. So how we integrate these droids, these bots, these drones into our work trucks, that's all going to evolve. And then it's really going to push to electrification of the entire work truck body beyond the chassis. So it's really the electrification of the work truck that's really the issue, not just the propulsion system. So in closing, it's truly an exciting time to be in the commercial work truck industry. I see and view the chaos in our markets as an opportunity, not a negative, but in reality, it's a catalyst for our transformation and evolution. And we are at EAVX are excited to be an integral part of the transformation process, leading the innovation of new work truck bodies and accessories in collaboration with the most advanced electric and autonomous chassis manufacturers and technology partners. In order to evolve and transform, we believe innovation needs to be collaborative across body, chassis, and technology. You can't develop this stuff independently. It all has to work together. And so we're seeking that level of collaboration within the industry. Our focus here at EAVX is just that. So we're focusing on the body engineering, and we want to collaborate with the most advanced chassis and technology partners available to develop and take commercial work truck forward into the future. We see the industry moving towards a more machine-centric future, and I think you're going to enjoy the rest of today's sessions as you learn about the evolution of the dealer channels, how we're designing the future state of commercial work trucks, and more of the digital technology which will shake up our space. Thank you.